Mr. Simon Seow from Singapore is a co-founder of Indigitas. He also serves as a senior digital strategist for the Global Crew movement. Mr. Simon is married and is the shepherd of 3 young adult children. He is a creative catalyst and communicator who cares about bringing the unchanging gospel to a changing generation. God has written this burden into his story by making him a creative who likes new ideas. He first experienced this through launching and leading the Creative Communications Ministry team in Singapore. He will be taking us through the topic, the Gospel and Technological Revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our speaker, Mr. Simon Seow.
Well, hello everybody. Hello from Singapore. It is 30 minutes past 12 midnight. I usually don't stay up so late, but it's a pleasure and a joy for me to join you all the way from a whole different part of the world. I know that this past 2 weeks or so has been very special for many of you, and this is a significant time as you commit yourself to learn about missions. So it's a joy for me to join you, and I want to jump right in. As mentioned by Sylvia, I have several parts to this time, and hopefully we have a little bit of a Q&A, question and answer at the end. I also so at the beginning part, I want to start off with just an overview. I know that some of you got to hear me on the plenary talk on a couple of days ago. Some may not have. I'm not repeating the material because I believe you can go back and view it yourself. But I just want to talk briefly about our life on mission in a digital world. So as I've mentioned before, also during the talk, at any point, you can go to the ndgt.us/focus. You will find all the resources there, and you can track along, including this slide deck and the PDF. Okay? So there was a time when we was very different from what we're experiencing now. So just for a little bit of fun, you can type in the chat. All right. So what do you see here? Tell me. Tell me. I know it's the evening. Maybe you just had your dinner. What do you see in this picture? Feel free to go for it. Come on. Nobody? Loading, yes. They're loading something. Looks pretty heavy. Some kind of cargo. Some IBM. Somebody noticed this, the famous letters IBM. It's like a big computer, right? Well, would you believe it that this is 5 megabytes of data, like about 60 years ago?
There was a time.
Yeah, so this is amazing, right? Like now 5 megabytes is just like one photo on our smartphone. So this is pretty crazy, right? How technology has grown so fast. How about this? Give a caption. What is the caption you would give to this picture here? To this little cartoon? Anyone you want to give it a shot? No one? How about this, right? Getting a phone 10, right? Nowadays, if you go to the beach or leisure activity, you are just literally glued to your phone or whatever social media networks. We're just always connected. In fact, somebody says, there is no space in our modern lives that isn't filled up with some kind of entertainment or socializing or recording or commentary. This is truly an incredible moment in our world. We live in incredible times. Yet we're living and communicating as Christians is increasingly difficult and challenging. But I'm always reminded God has called us, right, to proclaim peace and to proclaim salvation. We're supposed to bring this news in a fresh way to our world that desperately needs it. In fact, we cannot stay silent. We need to press forward with bringing this peace and salvation. So I'm reminded also that one of the key things about missions is going where people are. You hear me saying this quite a lot. And missions at the heart is going where people are. So the question, of course, is where are people, right? Where are people increasingly? Well, this guy is on TikTok. He has 502,000 followers. That's more than a million, a 500,000 followers. And all he does, he reads scripture daily. Those of you who attended the plenary talk may have heard me talk about this. But the question I ask is like, what makes people want to follow someone like Colin, right? I'm not suggesting that all of us do this very thing, but there is something unique about entering a space where people are and then bringing light, bringing the God's precious word in those spaces. And so it really makes me think, what makes it work, and so what really is digital missions? I would say digital missions is actually journeying with people who need Jesus in the digital space. I'll unpack this a little bit more, and I hope to share just briefly some stories and examples. But my desire is that to equip you with some of these thinking models. And actually today we'll get practical, right? We will actually download an app, and then we will do a little bit of practice in engaging in spiritual conversations online. But I want you to consider for a while, when you think about the people, right? Who are the people you're trying to reach? And do we really know them? And more importantly, where are they on the journey, right? So these are questions I want you to ask yourself. You think about your friends. Think about the people that God has given you a burden to reach out to. Where are they in this journey, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic times? What are they really thinking about or wrestling with? What emotions are they experiencing? Because this is key. When you are asking these questions about the people you're trying to reach, you're actually practicing this thing called outside-in thinking. Just like an optician that is trying to prescribe the right pair of glasses for the customer, and some of you wear glasses, you need to hear from your customer, right? What are they seeing? What are they experiencing and feeling? Then you can only offer the right prescription after they tell you, is it clear? Is it comfortable? Right? So you need to put yourself in their shoes. You are seeking to know and understand their needs. And their needs could be varied, right? Move back a slide. The needs of your friends or the people you're trying to reach, it's not just straight away Jesus, right? We know they need Jesus, but the way that it is expressed, it may be food on their table. It may be some understanding my faith better, a deeper understanding of myself. Maybe it's as simple as something to do on Friday, or to know, there is a friend available for them, so their needs could surprise you. And so that's why it's very important to have this outside-in thinking. Okay, so that's the first thing, about a concept that is going where people are and where they are. And the next concept is this idea of a journey. This is very key because we know that everyone is on a spiritual journey, whether they realize it or not, right? So we live in a very complex world, and we need to have a simple way to understand. And this, I would recommend, is a framework of seeing where people are. Are they unaware? Are they curious? Are they a follower? Or are they a guide, right? And the goal of this is to invite them to take one step to the right. For example, if they're curious, they may not necessarily be curious about Jesus right this point, but they're curious like, I wonder why this Christian friend, he doesn't seem as anxious or worried during this pandemic? What gives? Why is he like that? Or why is she not worried? So that's some curiosity there. But is there a step that they can take to discover and move them towards being a follower of Christ? Okay. So it is in this very context that we talk about that we are called by Christ to bring this unchanging gospel to a changing generation. The question, of course, is how do we communicate this life-changing message of Christ to our world? Maybe TikTok is not your thing. Maybe you're not called to be an influencer or on YouTube or on any social media. But how do you do it? How do you express it? One of the things I will share a little bit more later is this concept of doing a digital outreach. Right, and so if you want to find out more, you can type that link in ndgt.us/do in your web browser. You can find out a little bit more. But what would it look like if Christians come together and say, can we trust God to reach the social networks, the people that God has already put in our influence, right? So here's another example of a well thought out journey. I shared this briefly at the plenary talk, but these are folks part of the indigenous tribe in the Philippines, and they started up this social media strategy to engage with people that on the topic of love and relationships, right? But they don't do it in a preachy way, right? You notice, for example, at the bottom, they says, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want a girlfriend until I'm ready for commitment," right? Well, those of you who know where this came from, you might kind of have a little laugh about it or chuckle, right? So because you understand the context, but it challenges the truth behind that statement is there, but it doesn't have to be preachy, and sometimes it just has to be fun. When it's fun, you are causing people to wrestle with their paradigms of love and relationships. And hopefully you can introduce them to a love that is robust and is lasting, which they can find in Jesus. Okay? So here's an example of how you can invite someone who is curious to become a follower of Christ. And many people actually message into this particular Facebook page called BW. And then they begin to discover, there is a love relationship that I can have with a God that will never let me down. Okay? So you're moving them a little bit from the curious towards the follower. So they might be a 4 on this scale of belief, but now because of your social media and because of what you offered them, they are moving to 5. Okay? So they are on that journey to discovering Christ. So that is our call. At the heart of the God's call for us is not just telling the good news, but also being the good news. See, Christian witness is not just telling people or telling thirsty people where to find the well. It's also being the spring and the living water in a dry and broken desert place where people are lost and desperate, so the life-transforming power or the presence of Jesus can be experienced. So we are doing the ministry of presence. So sometimes being in the social media is not just about us. It's about being with the people who need Jesus. So every one of us, we play a part and we get to be a digital missionary. I want to remind us that this is a holy calling. This is not just, have kind of stroking our ego to say, how well we did. But this is being in the space where people are. Some years ago, I was at Nairobi, Kenya, your country, and many of you are from Kenya, and I know there are visitors as well. But this tweet, really captured my heart, and this lady called Original Kenyan says, God is raising a digital army and I'm part of it. And another person added, I'm called to win more souls for Christ. And that's why you're here. I trust that that's the reason why we're having this workshop. So I want to just briefly let you respond because we have about 50 minutes together, but I don't want it to be just a one way. As I've shared in the past 10-15 minutes, what is one key concept or phrase or principle that stood out to you? Just type it in the chat. All right. So this, then everybody can see and everybody can interact, and this also helps you sort of seal it in, right? What have you heard so far that stood out to you? A key thought, a concept, or phrase? Just type it in the chat. Thank you, Grace. Come on, let's keep going. Love it. Awesome. Good reminders. We are to go where people are. We want to be the good news. Love it. I'm very encouraged. I know at the plenary session, even though there were hundreds of us, so many of you put in the chat just kind of your reflection. So good. Living the good news. Yeah. Reaching the curious. Be the good news. Awesome. Love it. Okay, I'm gonna move on and we'll chat. We'll continue to chat here again. I'll put the link in the chat box for you. This is where you can find this slide deck and also the plenary deck and other resources. Okay, so it's specially made for Focus and for the Commission 21. Okay, so the link is in the chat, and so I want to move now into a segment. I'll stop share quickly here. I want to discuss a tool with you that will get you started. Okay, so we know we need to live our life on mission, right? The question is, how can we practically do it? Okay, so you should still be able to see my slides. It's now on my my video. Okay, right, so I want to share about your life on mission in the digital world. Okay, and specifically I want to discuss with you how you can use Mission Hub, the app, to help you flesh this out. So this gets practical. Okay, we already talked about the fact that God has called us to lead and invite others to be on a journey. So this app serves as a way to help us live our life on mission. Okay, so what is Mission Hub? Very simply put, Mission Hub allows you, it's a free app that allows you to help you be intentional with those around you. Okay, one step of faith at a time. Okay, if you can multitask, you can actually go to your Google Play Store or to your App Store and type in Mission Hub, one word, and you can download the app. Okay, you if not, you just follow along. I will show you the links later on, and you can continue to do that later also. Okay, so the big idea is this: to be intentional with those around you, one step of faith at a time. So we talk so much about missional living or living your life on mission. What is it really about? When we say missional living, we may all have a slightly different idea of what this means. Okay, so this is how we've come to define it. Missional living is living like Jesus by intentionally taking steps of faith in everyday life. It is demonstrating and communicating the gospel to people wherever they are. So take note, it's both demonstrating and communicating. Okay, so it's both, right? And it's most impactful when we can identify where those people are around us that are spiritual, where they are spiritually. And Mission Hub actually helps us to do just that. So let's start with this first guiding principle of Mission Hub. The first is this: every person matters. Right? God has placed us around other people, and every person matters to God. Whether they are friends, family, co-workers, clients, classmates, neighbors, you name it, each person is unique. Not just in who they are, but also where they are. Like we often say, every person has a name, every name has a story, every story matters to God. So my question to you is, who are the people in your lives right now? You and I need to discover the story behind that person or face. And the story could be quite different from what we expect, like we talked about earlier, right? What are their needs? And this leads us to a fundamental principle of our mission. Everyone is on a spiritual journey, right? We talked about it earlier. And people's journeys look different. And most progress through a 5-stage journey towards God. And these stages, as you see here, are part of the Mission Hub app, right? So you start with the uninterested, right? They're content with life, their beliefs, they show no interest in Jesus. Then there are those that are curious. They're open to spiritual conversations, or they're seeking to know God. Then you move on to those that are forgiven. They believe in Jesus and Savior, but perhaps not growing spiritually. And then you have the growing. Jesus is their master and they are learning to follow him as a way of life. But then you have also the guiding. Now they're committed to help others know and follow Jesus. So when we live on mission, it means that we are engaging people all across this spectrum of the spiritual journey with the gospel intentionally to help move them towards Christ and then move them towards living on mission themselves. Okay, follow so far? So the first one is every person matters. The second is simply this: every step counts. When taking steps of faith, every step counts. It could be the little actual steps that you take, maybe even to walk over to your neighbor's house, your friend's house, to greet him or her, and to build trust, to grow a relationship, to demonstrate your faith through your actions, perhaps to spark a conversation, to be open and vulnerable, and to ultimately point them to Jesus. We want believers to know that a step of faith, when you walk next door to your neighbor, or invite your friend for dinner, or ask them how you can pray for them, each of these steps are significant in the bigger picture of living on mission in your everyday life to point people to Jesus. So remember this, because sometimes we think, sharing Christ must be straight away telling them about who Jesus is. No, there are steps towards that journey. And sometimes it's better to not say it right away, right? So there are many different ways that you can take a step with others. And Mission Hub gives you 4 ways to think about how to relevantly and holistically be intentional with others. I'm going to go through this a little bit more detail so you can see how it can help you. The first is relate, pray, care, and share. Okay? So Mission Hub suggests 4 ways to draw someone closer to God. These are 4 large categories. All right? So they will gently prod them along in their journey. Okay? The first one is relate. These will give you ideas to help you deepen your relationship and to build trust. Okay, it's pretty straightforward how we relate with others. Next is, of course, to pray. We are inviting God into this relationship with this person, but it also softens not just the person's heart, but my heart for the lost and for my friends. And then care. It gives us ideas to help demonstrate that we truly care about this person, and it'll give you very practical ideas. I'll show you in a moment. And then finally, share. Right, after you have prayed, relate, pray, care, now you can share. This is telling your story and telling the story of Jesus to your friends and to your family. Okay, so these are the 4 ways that you see there, and there is a progression, and then you repeat the cycle again, because that is what the journey is all about, right? Okay. So here's how it looks like on the app. Okay, this is a mobile app that is working and it helps you. On the Mission Hub app, you're invited to choose a step to take with your friend. So in each of the category, there are different ideas and suggestions. For example, relate. Okay, the first one, you can maybe take a neighbor a meal, right? Or ask him out to have coffee, right? You can do something with them they enjoy. And if there isn't one step that's suitable, you can always create your own step. Okay. So in these uncertain times, with all kinds of calamities and instabilities around us, how do we as people of God who follow Jesus respond? What do steps of faith with those in our life look like? Think about it for a moment. I would even encourage you to jot them down. What do steps of faith look like? Maybe these are some ways. Mission Hub gives you prompts and suggestions. For example, many are struggling with fear, anxiety, loss. Mission Hub can prompt you with a simple suggestion like, share your anxiety with Samuel. Tell him that you also feel some sense of worry. Give Samuel a call, focus on the practical needs. Personally, one of the things that I appreciate about Mission Hub is that it will send you notifications or reminders to pray for your friend. It will even offer you an idea or suggestion or question that you could ask your non-Christian friends. So here's what we talked about so far, right? Every person matters. Discover where they are on their spiritual journey. Ask, are they uninterested? Maybe they're curious, or they could be forgiven and growing or guiding. Then, knowing where they are helps you to talk with them well so that you can better meet their needs or help them grow towards knowing Jesus. Every step. So that's the first person. Every person matters. The second one is every step counts. So discover the steps that you can take with people in your life. Use this simple framework that we have suggested. Relate, pray, care, and share. And discover the steps you could add into your app. Your Mission Hub app. So, and finally, your life on mission in community. So this is the final guiding principle. No one should go this alone, right? Your life on mission will be more successful when you do it in community. So I know many of you are part of, a Christian union in your school, or you are connected with a youth group. Try to do this together with someone else, right? Ask them also to add to launch this app and put some names in there, and get practical, because this is where you can celebrate together. It's a place actually you can build community. You celebrate and challenge each other as you reach those around you. Right. Shortly, I'll share a link with you to join the global community, but you can also start your own group within your own church or your own city, and there are many things that you can do together, right? So I don't have time today to give you a demo, but I will send you I'll put the link in the resources where you can watch a demo. It's very simple. I know many of you are students and you're very familiar with apps and technology. So once you get on the Mission Hub app, you will pretty much kind of get a sense of what to do with it, and you can play around with it. All right, so you can go check it out. Either you scan the QR code and go download it on Google Play or on the App Store. But this is the design for us to live our life on mission in the digital world. Okay. Finally, I want to invite you. Okay, so if you are considering to be part of the indigenous digital outreach community, you can go to the link ndgt.us/joinmh. Okay, or in the app, you just use the community code 456141. Okay, all right. So I've shared this is a very specific thing that helps you live your life on mission. I'm going to wrap this part up now, and I want to move on to the last segment of our time together, is to equip you with engaging in a spiritual conversation online. I'll just briefly mention that this app is stewarded by a global community that is passionate about Jesus and his mission, and there are plenty of resources on the Indigitus website, and you can discover, for example, like how do you engage in missions using your mobile phone, how do you share your faith, how you write your testimony, and various resources that are very helpful for you as you live your life on mission in the digital world. Okay, so with that, I will wrap up this segment. And if you have any questions or any comments, just type in the chat. All right? Okay. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my deck from earlier. I'll skip this through because it's all there now. How are you guys doing? All right, you can take a stretch. I know this is a kind of a long session. There's about close to 100 of you on this call. I know that having to stare at the screen for so long can be quite daunting. But this part is going to be fun, all right? You're going to get some practice, okay? To me, this is quite key because as you engage, you really flesh it out. So I'll just tell you up front, I'm going to keep the teaching part short because it's not complicated, right? But I want you to get into some immediate practice because to me, this is the way you feel familiar, right? But your practice in this stage is more talking, but you can also do it in chat, right? In the real conversation. So the problem statement is this, right? We all have conversations with friends, right? We all hang out and chat with people we know. The question is, how do we turn the corner towards a spiritual conversation, right? Sometimes we just find it hard. We can talk about sports and about all kinds of fun things, computers and movies and all, but just when we need to talk about Jesus, it's just a tad awkward and we don't know what to do about it, right? So my hope in this short session is to equip you with some ideas of how to turn the corner and actually practically move to engage people in spiritual conversation. Okay? You ready? All right. So let me start off by saying this, right? We sometimes mistaken, right, that, we've got to make the conversion somehow. But I've always found this definition to be very helpful when wherever witnessing is concerned, which is basically standing as a witness for Christ. It is simply taking the initiative to share Christ in the power of the Holy Spirit, and then you leave the results to God. First, we realize we depend on the Holy Spirit. It's not ourselves. It's not how clever our words are. And that's why we need to let God move that person. The results belong to Him. So if that friend or that neighbor is not ready to listen to you or pushes you away, don't take it personally. Okay? We just need to be faithful and just share, right? So we want to offer real connection to people with this genuine sense of concern and love. We don't have an agenda, right? Our agenda shouldn't be, I want to convert you. Our agenda is to present it in a loving way so that they can make a decision for themselves. In fact, we want to understand their story, right? In order to be able to connect deeply. So we start off with asking where. But before you begin, you pray for the people God is going to bring you into connection with and a conversation. Where are they digitally? Where are the spaces they hang out, right? This is where we can do a bit of what you call a social listening, right? Before you engage. Listen to what they're saying on social media. What they say there matters. Sometimes people say some very honest things online, right? Be a student of the friends and the social networks that you want to reach out to. That brings us to how to connect, right? We want to start with a conversation. So I would say, take the initiative to start. Say, hi, how are you? It's been a while since we last connected. I haven't seen you since whatever, right? If it's someone new you're meeting, you introduce yourself. If it's a friend, you just get reconnected. Then you show interest in their lives, right? anybody that's interested in your story, you'll be willing to open up yourself a little bit more. And as you show love, you also must be willing to listen, right? They would want to tell something and you must be willing to listen. That's the goal. You build relationship, right? And then you begin to share about yourself and be vulnerable. You're human too, right? They want to know that, oh, I'm also having a hard time at school and things like that. So, and then you find this common ground. That's where you share your real story, right? And then the desire is that you find similar experiences, background, interests, fears, and concerns. Then you have an opportunity to discover their needs, right? What do you do to discover their needs? Okay, we're going to offer you a very simple framework, okay? Say after me. Ask, listen, share. I know I can't hear you, but it's okay. Ask, listen, share. Okay, if you forget everything else I tell you, just remember these 3 words. Okay, the first is ask good questions, right? We want to use questions that actually draw them out to really share. So here are some guidelines. Don't use closed questions. Closed questions are like, do you? Which one? There's only one answer to it, and the conversation ends very quickly. An open question, on the other hand, are questions like what, how, can you tell me more about this, right? So elicit thinking and reflection, and it actually invites them to reveal their feelings and their desires. So think about how you phrase your questions, because it really can open up doors for good conversations. Okay, so I wouldn't read through everything here, but they are just kind of prompts for you. Think about how you ask to invite. Okay, because your question can be very inviting versus ends the conversation, right? You can ask that questions that help you understand, or you can ask to clarify, and you can ask to guide. Okay, and so these are ways that are very what they call good questions, powerful questions that move people towards questions. The second is this: you listen for understanding. So right after you ask, you must have your ears open, ready to listen. So you've already done some social listening, right? Sometimes you listen for the trends. What is it that it's on their minds? What topics interest them? From that, sometimes their needs come up to their surface. What is on their mind these days? What satisfies them? And then even deeper, you can hear a little bit about their condition, especially their emotions, or their worldview, or their value system. So again, as I said, you're being a student of the people, your audience. Okay. And some possible themes that might come out, they might be, issues of happiness, about success, maybe about love and relationships, maybe about significance or purpose and meaning in life, right? So those are all possible themes, and then they give you a chance to take one step with your audience. Okay, so now we move to the fun part. Like, how then do you, after you ask, you listen, you want to transit to the small talk to spiritual topics. Okay, so again, I've put in some resources here, and you can check it out. There are many questions that are conversation starters, and most of them provide some kind of disruption. So sometimes you need to disrupt the process a little bit. For example, you might ask something like, has anything ever happened to you that was dramatic or personal or spectacular, that it causes you to think about God or spiritual things? That, or maybe maybe not God, but think about a supreme being. It's like, so you begin to like throw in something that disrupts it, and it opens up to a different direction or trajectory of conversation. Okay, let's review, right? Ask, listen, share. Right, so share, you want to share from the heart. Okay, here I would suggest you share personal faith stories. Okay, note that I'm not talking about your personal testimony alone. Okay, it's good to have your personal testimony, but sometimes your faith stories might be about how God helps you overcome, let's say, a broken relationship, or how God helped challenge you to really wrestle with, your sense of hopelessness. So those are faith stories. They don't necessarily talk about, when you receive Christ, but they are important nonetheless. All right. But whenever you share, it's very important to ask permission. Okay. You must always ask permission and say, is it okay if I tell you a little bit about how I deal with when my breakup, is it okay I share with you how I managed to stay, so sane during this crazy time with my mom passing away and the COVID and all that? You ask permission, right? And then it must be relevant and authentic, right? And again, it's not just about, I want to convert you, so I want to tell you this story, okay? So you share personal faith stories, how you encountered Jesus. And of course, let me quickly, when I was recently, we did a digital missions trip to southern Thailand, and this is a team together with some of the locals in Thailand. We were online with our partners and our friends, and there were students that were in the school that were non-Christians, and we were able to share our faith stories with them. I don't have time to go into the details, but basically those are real opportunities for us to tell a little story of what Jesus did. Okay, of course, you can also share a gospel presentation. So this is something that you may have been trained in your gospel union, Christian union, or in your youth group. But whatever presentation you use it as a simple way. You can use the God Tools app. In the God Tools app, both available in Android and iOS, it has tools like knowing God personally, the 4 spiritual laws, the 4, etc. You go check it out. And in many languages, in some hard languages as well, that you can use, that's easier for you to connect with your audience. Okay, so these are just some examples you can see there. And there's even, a tool called Power Over Fear. And in the context of the African context, that might be, a significant one about how Jesus rescues us from the powers and forces around us. Okay, so go check that out. All right, besides your personal story, you can also share videos, short films, and articles that will speak to the person and spark spiritual conversations. Okay, so we don't have time to watch this clip, but I would recommend you go check out this fallingplates.com. They have this excellent 4-minute gospel video, and it's very powerful, and it's not so religious, so that it's very easy for non-Christians to relate to, using imagery that is very common to everyday people. Okay, so here's an example of like how you could use that short film or any other short film that you find suitable. You might engage with a friend and say, hey, hi Ace, how are you doing? And then he says, I'm doing well, how are you? Good to hear you. How are you adjusting with the quarantine? And then sounds like he's very bored, adjusting, not going out, fear of getting the virus. Same here, making sure to stay fit and safe, So many deaths, it also scares me. So I agree, it scares me too, but good thing we can still remain hopeful. Then this person asked an interesting question, where do I get that hope? I want to be hopeful. And then I agree, then he said, I've been reflecting lately about life and found this amazing video. Do you mind if I share a video with you? What was he doing? Asking permission, right? He asked permission and the guy says, yes. So you share the link to Falling Plates, and then, important, ask, let me know what you think after watching this video, right? You want to create a pathway for you to come back and ask, and follow through. So then the guy apparently watched it and said, done watching. So he says, you start off by saying, life is portrayed as falling plates. What do you think about that? And he responds, we are fragile, we are temporary, I'm a sinner. I hear you, bro. Video also suggests that everyone is on a spiritual journey. Do you think you're moving towards God, away from Him, or staying about the same? And this guy apparently maybe has some faith. He said, I moved away from God the past years. And would you like to rediscover God again? So this is a question and an invitation, also like asking permission. And he says, yes, I'd love to. So here's where you can continue that conversation and take it from there, right? So this is what we suggested, what to do after sharing the video. Recognize, you can use some phrases that help you transit from that media piece into a conversation, right? And then you can use some prompts to discover where they are in that spiritual journey. Okay. All right. So here's about using short films. Let me quickly go through the last part, and then I want to pause and give you some questions to practice. Okay. So some of you wondering, where can I find clips like that? Okay. So you can use the Jesus Film app, an excellent app with lots of, it has a Jesus film broken up into parts. You can actually watch one of Jesus' miracles, him calming the storm, and you could use that to discuss with Christians or non-Christians alike. You can also have short films in this app, and in fact in this app it even gives you the questions. For example, this one, there are questions there. What motivates people to want to redo things in life? And so you can use any one of those questions to prompt you to enter into some kind of meaningful connection or conversation. Okay. All right. Ask, listen, share. All right. So you see my wife's name there, but that's because she also uses this slide deck. But it is important that we know, as Christians, it is our privilege for us to journey with another person on their spiritual journey. Okay. All right. So I want to now move you quickly into a practice. Okay. I've asked our friends to help me break you up into breakout rooms. Okay. Listen carefully, because I'm going to give you some instructions. In the room of 3, when you see the breakout room, please accept it. It's random. You may not have met each other. It's okay, right? We are just practicing. There will be 2 people who will chat. Okay. One is the asker. The other one is the responder. And the final person is just the observer or timekeeper. Set on your timer 4 minutes. Okay? 4 minutes per conversation. That's it, right? When the time's up, doesn't matter where you are, move on to the next person. Just swap. Okay? Everybody should get a chance. We should take no longer than 12 to 15 minutes. Okay? The asker selects a question to start. The next 2 slides, I want you to take a screenshot. I will type the questions as well, or I will paste the questions into the chat as well. But I would recommend you take a screenshot of the following 2 slides. Okay, you see it? So pick one of these questions. All right, it doesn't matter which one, just pick one. So for example, you should start off with hey, catching up a little bit, how are you doing? And as you talk, you will slowly move into a space where you can ask one of these questions, right? For example, you can say, hey, what have you found to be the best way of dealing with disappointment, rejection, distress, and discouragement? Okay? So whatever is natural, just try to ask this question, not right away, right? You start off with one of you pretend to be a non-Christian if it helps, all right? And then you just begin engaging, and then use one of these questions and see where you go with it. Okay? Follow so far? I know this is might feel like it's quite a bit. Okay, I'm going to paste some of these questions, including some additional questions. Okay, in the chat. You can use any of those questions, doesn't matter. I'm not asking you to use all the questions. Okay, I'll give you the next slide. Right? After you ask those questions, you might get a chance to ask something like this. I realized I never quite asked you. We've been friends for so long. What is your spiritual background? you know. Oh, we've been neighbors for so long, but I never really ask you, what do you live for? What do you value most? All right. So those are very natural questions to move into a spiritual topic. Okay. I just want you to practice the turning the corner. Okay. Follow so far? I can't see your response, so I'm gonna trust by faith that you're with me. Okay. So if you haven't done so, take a screenshot of this slide, right? And then this one as well. If not, you see in the chat. Okay, good. Somebody says yes, following. Exciting. All right. So I'm going to ask our friends to help you go into the breakout rooms. Quickly go into the rooms. Don't need to introduce yourself. Just say your name, and then go for it. Start with a normal conversation, and then try one of these questions and see if you can take it deeper into a spiritual topic with one of these. Okay? All right. Thank you. See you in about 12 minutes, and we'll come back and debrief.